Hey everyone, this is the Halo Wars 2 top 10 leader powers for the Banished. I've already done a video covering the top 10 powers for UNSC, so if you want to see that video, I'll put a link in the description as well as a card on the video. For this video, again, only focusing on the Banished, and these are going to be the active leader powers, meaning no passive abilities, so things like combat repair will not be in this video. It's only powers you can drop, whether it's units, heals, defense. That's going to be what makes up this video. Let's go ahead and get started. This is all completely my opinion. I don't have any stats to back up any of these claims. It's just my personal opinion in Halo Wars 2. Number 10, I have as the Grunt Dome from Yap Yap. I think this is so great because not only does it impact your units, but any of your allies' units, and it works best when you want to, say, cancel out a beam. It works great canceling out like a level 1 beam, or just defend your units from turret fire or siege, or, whatever the case is. When it gets fully upgraded, you can get 2 of these things. Grunt Dome level 3 gives you 2 Grunt Domes. I love using this with a Scarab because you effectively get 3 shields. You drop your first Grunt Dome, you're still using the leader power staring down at your Scarab and the Grunt Dome. You wait for that first one to deplete, you drop the second one, wait for that to deplete, and then you can use your Scarab Y ability. You effectively get 3 shields. It lets your Scarab last for an incredibly long time under fire. Just love the Grunt Dome all around. Number 9, I have as the Methane Party, as again from Yap Yap, a second power from Yap Yap. This acts very similar to the way that the Scatter Bomb does for Forge, but I also love that it impacts both buildings and units. It gives them the debuff, as well as the buff for your units as well, if, for your Yap Yap Grunt units, that is, in particular. So I think just all around, the Methane Party is pretty great. I think it's effective both against buildings and units. There are some powers like Consano's Inferno where I really think it leans into you using on buildings, but for the Methane Party, you can use it on anything. Number 8, I have the Decimus Hero Drop. This is like the 11 o'clock ability for Decimus. Not only is the hero great all around, but the Y ability is just so good with all of the beams from the Decimus hero. It's really like a mini eradication. It works out great, especially on maps like Sentry where you want a turtle or there's like a big bundle of units. It's just a great hero unit all around. Number 7, I'm kind of bending the rules, but they kind of more or less act in a very similar way. That's Aatrox's Bulwark and Shipmaster's Extraction. Both of these work great because they offer some invulnerability, especially the Bulwark. It is awesome for really baiting and canceling out leader powers due to its short invincibility. So you see a Mac Blast coming, you can drop the Bulwark, to kind of cancel it out. Doesn't cause any damage to you. Same thing with like a beam, any sort of quick power that it will come down to destroy your units. The Bulwark can really cancel it out. Works great for bases too. If there's a lot of vultures that you see the laser for the Mega Barrage and you see all those Phoenix missiles heading towards your base, just use the Bulwark, stops all of that out, and now your opponent has to wait for the Y ability of those vultures to recharge. So absolutely love the Bulwark. And the Extraction can work out great too, healing your base. You can use that actually defensively or offensively to heal your base. Pretty great. Number 6, I have the Hunter's Brand. This thing can just delete armies when you get it fully upgraded. I think it works best on units, not so much on buildings. It can be fine on buildings, but I think this is best suited on units, especially infantry and vehicles. I mean, it's just so good. The only thing you have to look out for with the Hunter's Brand is if you put it too close to the Fog of War and your last unit dies, it will cancel out the Hunter's Brand, and it will also count as a drop. So not only will you have spent the resources, you've not destroyed anything, but you also have to wait for it to recharge. So just be mindful of that. That's kind of a common bug in Halo Wars 2 for the Hunter's Brand specifically, but it's just a great power overall. Number 5 is the Eradication. This thing is such a joy to watch. I love watching the Eradication just demolish units and buildings. The Eradication is kind of a slow building leader power. I know those beams do cause some damage as they all kind of clump together and create that big implosion. But I think the Eradication works really, really great combined with other leader powers. My favorite combo is the Maelstrom Eradication, Vortis's Maelstrom. If you're unfamiliar with what that power is, that kind of keeps units clumped together and they can't escape. And you can bait your opponent, have the Maelstrom, and then your teammate will drop the Eradication. Essentially, the entire army is getting annihilated. It doesn't matter what you do. So it works great. I don't really have any complaints with the Eradication as a power. Again, works great with both units and buildings. Number 4, I have the Lich Vanguard from Pavium. This thing was a treat to use for the first time when Pavium first launched. I call it the Flying Scarab because it has a beam from the Lich Vanguard that sounds and looks very similar to the beam of the Scarab. It flies around continuously, attacking these units, destroying units, works great on buildings too. And then it creates the little unit bubble ball on the battlefield, which you can train units out of. And I think that's kind of an underrated feature. This is the only leader power I know of in the entire game where it kind of does something like this. And a lot of opponents just kind of ignore that. And as long as, even if the Lich Vanguard, is taking some damage, you can heal it. And the bubble ball, you can just keep making units out of and increasing your army size right there on the field. You can make anything from hunters to reavers to all sorts of things that the Lich Vanguard offers. And I think the Lich Vanguard stays around for quite a long time. I feel like that's one of the longest leader powers in the entire game. So if your opponent just ignores it, the Lich Vanguard is just going to annihilate anything in its path. Number 3, I have Devastating Host from Colony. This has got to be the best drop in the game for units. It's a ton of veteran units, and they all have vehicle symbiotes. And I think there is also, I don't know if it's intentional or not, but you can also activate symbiotes on whatever you're dropping it on top of, I believe that is correct. So if you have a bunch of Wraiths and you drop Devastating Host on top of it, your existing Wraiths are going to get vehicle symbiotes on top of all of that. The symbiotes overall with Colony are pretty underrated. I feel like that really does buff your vehicles extensively as Colony. And the Devastating Host is just, that cranked up due to the veterancy that all of your units get when, the veteran units that come from that drop. It's just one of the best drops, if not the best unit drop in the entire game. Number 2, I think it's pretty clear. It's the beam. The beam is incredible in Halo Wars 2. Over the years, I think it's gotten buffed over time instead of nerfed. If you play the campaign, you will have nightmares of the beams because they drop the beams everywhere in the Halo Wars 2 campaign. But for multiplayer in particular, the beam is just, a menace out on the battlefield. Too many people in Halo Wars 2 do not split their units when they're getting attacked by the beam, so they just end up losing their entire army. And as the beam improves in its leveling, I think some leaders have up to beam 3. I personally think beam 2 is the sweet spot because I think beam 3 takes a really, really long time to wind up and kind of gives your opponent a chance to kind of dodge out of the way. But beam 2 is really that sweet spot where, everything is just getting destroyed. It doesn't really matter what it is. This works best on units. I think the beam is okay on buildings, but the beam is just an animal on the battlefield. Number 1 I have as the best banished active leader power in Halo Wars 2 is the Cataclysm from Vortis. You stack Cataclysm with something like the Vortis Volatile Scarab. What Cataclysm does is it activates all of the infusion that's on the battlefield, and it just kind of ruptures it, and it just kind of explodes. And it reminds me so much of Consano's Inferno, but this does just so much more damage. Again, if you have units that can spread infusion while Cataclysm is active, so something like the Wraith, when you have the infusion tech fully upgraded, infused engineers, the volatile scarab, even the active leader power where you spread infusion. It is insane. You can stack the cataclysm on top of that with, say, the invigorating frenzy. That is what allows the infusion to heal you. It just works so well, and the cataclysm is so good. You can essentially destroy an entire base with a cataclysm. Units as well, I mean, nothing really stands a chance. You can combine that again with a Maelstrom Cataclysm. Oh, it is a sight to behold, and it really is amazing in Halo Wars 2. So there you go. Those are my top 10 active leader powers for the Banished in Halo Wars 2. I love to know what your list is, so let me know in the comments down below, or what you disagree with my list or agree on my list, doesn't matter. Love to hear your comments. And if you want to chat more about Halo Wars 2, well, we have a Discord server with over 5,000 members in it. We'd love to have you join and chat about Halo Wars. Again, check out that UNSC leader power list that I made. I was going to say tier list, but I don't think that's entirely accurate. And thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you, James.